Shalom, everyone. I'm Reverend Gary Christopher, your host for It's All About the Aliyah. Today, I'm presenting to you a very special feast edition of this program. And once again, by the end of this program, you will see that it really is all about the Aliyah. I'm going to be addressing the most mysterious feast of them all, Yom Teruah, or Yom HaTeruah. Now, I just heard some of you say, I've never heard of that. And that's because I used the biblical name and not its better known name of Rosh Hashanah. Now, warning, I'm going to challenge tradition today. For my Jewish Orthodox friends and my Christian friends who love their Hebraic roots, I'm going to be sharing something that may rock your world a little bit. But we'll get to that in a moment. We're going to go to a commercial, 60 seconds, and I'll be right back.
Nearly 8 million Jewish people from around the world live outside of Israel. Many Jews dream of making Aliyah to their biblical homeland, but are too poor, lack documentation, or live in communistic countries. Ezra is a Christian nonprofit organization that helps the poorest of the poor Jewish people immigrate to Israel. Ezra partners from around the world believe that the return of the Jewish people to Israel is a fulfillment of God's promise made centuries ago. For 2,000 years, it has seemed impossible, but it is happening now. God is at the center of it all, and He is reaching out to the four corners of the earth. He is regathering His people back to Israel. You can help provide a light to show the way home by helping Ezra's efforts around the world. Go to ezrainternational.org and give the gift of hope today.
All right, welcome back. As I said before the break, we're going to get into the Feast of Yom Teruah. But before I do, I want to give full credit here to a Karaite Jewish man, Nehemiah Gordon, who is a biblical scholar and an expert on these matters. And I have taken a teaching of his and adopted it here. And so again, Nehemiah Gordon is the man I want to give credit to for much of what I'm going to share in the next few minutes. Now, we're talking about the Feast of the Lord, and if you're not familiar with the Feast of the Lord, you can find them in Leviticus 23 and other places, and that's exactly how they're described, the feasts of the Lord, not the Jewish feast. Although the Jewish people have preserved them for us, they were meant for all children of God to celebrate. Unfortunately, the Christian world often neglects these appointed times. The Hebrew word is moed or moedim in the plural. They are appointed times to meet with God, and we should know about them. So I want to share the truth about this particular feast here. On the first day of the seventh month, this month in the Hebrew calendar is known better as Tishri, the Torah commands us to observe the holy day of Yom Teruah, which means day of shouting. You can find that in Leviticus 23, verse 23 through 25. Yom Teruah is a day of rest on which work is forbidden. In other words, it is an additional Sabbath alongside the weekly Sabbath. You have these Sabbaths as annual, as some of the annual feasts are Sabbaths. One of the unique things about Yom Teruah is that the Torah does not say what the purpose of this holy day is. The Torah gives at least one reason in all of the other feasts, and sometimes two. When you look at the feasts of the Lord, for example, let's say the feast of unleavened bread or matzot, you'll see that the Bible tells us it's a commemoration of the Exodus from Egypt, and it's also a celebration of the beginning of the barley harvest. So there you have two reasons for this feast. You take the example of the feast of Shavuot. We can call it the Feast of Weeks, or as the church calls it, Pentecost. It's a celebration of the wheat harvest also. Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, the Bible goes into great lengths in giving details of this Day of Atonement in Leviticus chapter 16. I'll give you one more example. The Feast of Sukkot, or Booths. Or maybe you know it as Tabernacles. It commemorates the wandering of the Israelites in the desert and is also a celebration of the ingathering of agricultural produce. Now, in contrast to these that I just mentioned, Yom Teruah has no clear purpose other than we are commanded to rest on this day. Now, the name Yom Teruah does provide us clues as to its purpose. Teruah literally means to make a loud noise. Now, this word can be described as a loud noise made by a trumpet, or it can be described as a large gathering of people shouting in unison. Now, I'll give you an example that we find in the book of Joshua, chapter 6, verse 5, of the word teruah being used. It shall come to pass when the ram's horn makes a long blast, when you hear the sound of the shofar, the entire nation will shout, a great shout, and the wall of the city shall fall in its place, and the people shall go up as one man against it. Now, in this verse, the word shout appears twice, once as a verb form, and then the verb form of teruah, and the second time as a noun form of teruah. Although this verse mentions the sound of the shofar, the ram's horn, the two incidents of teruah do not refer to the shofar. In fact, in this verse, teruah refers to the shouting of the Israelites, which was followed by the fall of the walls of Jericho. While the Torah does not explicitly tell us the purpose of Yom Teruah, its name may indicate that it's intended to be a day of public prayer. The verb form of teruah often refers to the noise made by a gathering of the faithful, calling out to the Almighty in unison. Let's give you some examples in the scripture. Clap your hands, all ye nations. Shout to God with singing voice. Psalm 47:2. Shout to God, all the earth. Psalm 66, verse 1. Sing to God, our strength. Shout to the God of Jacob. Psalm 81:2. And then shout to Jehovah, all the earth. Psalm 100, verse 1. Now in Leviticus chapter 23, verse 24, Yom Teruah is also referred to as Zikron Teruah. The word Zikron is sometimes translated as memorial, but this Hebrew word also means to mention, often in reference to speaking the name of Jehovah. So examples of this can be found throughout the scripture. I'm going to give you some. You can write them down. I'm not going to go to them right now, but Exodus 3:15, Isaiah 12:4, Isaiah 26:13, Psalm 45:18. The day Zikron Teruah, the mentioning shout, may refer to the day of gathering in public prayer, in which a crowd of faithful shouts the name of Jehovah in unison. Now, today, few people remember the biblical name of Yom Teruah, and instead, as I said earlier, it's widely known as Rosh Hashanah, which literally means head of the year, and hence we get the name New Year's. The transformation of Yom Teruah, day of shouting, into Rosh Hashanah, New Year's, is a result of pagan Babylonian influence upon the Jewish nation. The first stage in the transformation was the adoption of the Babylonian month names. In the Torah, the months are numbered as first month, second month, third month, etc. You can see that in Leviticus 23 or Numbers 28. But during their sojourn in Babylonia, the Hebrews began to use the pagan Babylonian month names, a fact readily admitted in the Talmud. I'm not making this up. The pagan nature of the Babylonian month names is epitomized by the fourth month known as Tammuz. In the Babylonian religion, Tammuz was the god of grain, whose annual death and resurrection brought fertility to the world. In the book of Ezekiel, the prophet describes a journey to Jerusalem in which he saw the Jewish women sitting in the temple weeping over Tammuz. Ezekiel 8, verse 14. The reason they were weeping over Tammuz is that according to the Babylonian mythology, Tammuz had been slain, but he had not yet resurrected. In ancient Babylonia, the time for weeping over Tammuz was the early summer. Now, this is when the rains cease throughout the Middle East and green vegetation is burnt by the unrelenting sun. To this day, the fourth month in the rabbinical calendar is known as the month of Tammuz and is still a time of weeping and mourning. Some of the Babylonian month names found their way into the latter books of the Tanakh as well, but they always appeared alongside the Torah month names. For example, Esther 3:7 says, "In the first month, which is the month of Nisan." This is found in Esther 3, verse 7. This verse starts off by giving the Torah the Torah name for the month, first month, and then it translates the month into the pagan equivalent, which is the month of Nisan. So by the time the Jewish people, lived during the book of that time period in which the book of Esther takes place, the Persian Empire had adopted the Babylonian calendar names for its civil administration in the realm. So the Jews used these, and over time, they just fell into disuse. In other words, they would use both. The Jews would use the Torah name first month, and then they would use the pagan name. But after a while, the Torah name just fell into disuse. And as the Jewish people became more comfortable with the Babylonian month names, they just became more susceptible to Babylonian influence. This is the similar example of this is the way the American Jews observed Hanukkah, it became a Jewish version of Christmas. This influence began with the seemingly harmless custom of giving gifts on Hanukkah. And until the Jews arrived in America, this custom was unknown. It was a rarity. And in Israel, Hanukkah doesn't have to compete for the hearts and minds of the Jewish youth. It doesn't have to compete with Christmas, so you just don't see it. But once Hanukkah took on this relatively trivial aspect of Christmas in America, it became ripe for the more significant influences. Today, many American Jews have established the custom of setting up a Hanukkah bush as a Jewish alternative to the Christmas tree. These Jews did not want to adopt Christmas outright, so they Judaized the Christmas tree and incorporated it into Hanukkah. This example shows how easy it is to be influenced by pagan practices of foreign religions, especially when there's some type of similarity in the two feasts or that they fall at the same time of the year. The fact that Hanukkah often falls out around the same time as Christmas made it natural for American Jews to incorporate elements of Christmas into their observance of Hanukkah. So just as the American Jews have been influenced by Christmas, the ancient rabbis were influenced by the pagan Babylonian religion. Although many Jews returned to Judea when the exile officially ended in 516 BCE, the forebears of the rabbis remained behind in Babylonia, where rabbinical Judaism gradually took shape. Many of the earliest known rabbis, such as Hillel, were born and educated in Babylonia. Indeed, Babylonia remained the heart of rabbinical Judaism until the 11th century CE. The Babylonian Talmud abounds with the influence of Babylonian paganism. Indeed, pagan deities even appear in the Talmud, recycled as Jewish angels and demons. So one field of Babylonian religious influence was in the observance of Yom Teruah as the New Year's celebration. From very early times, the Babylonian lunar solar calendar was very similar to the biblical calendar. The result was that Yom Teruah often fell out on the same day as the Babylonian New Year's festival of Akitu. The Babylonian Akitu fell out on the first day of Tishri, which coincided with Yom Teruah, the first day of the seventh month. When Jews started calling the seventh month by the Babylonian name of Tishri, it paved the way for turning Yom Teruah into a Jewish Akitu. At the same time, the rabbis did not want to adopt Akitu outright, so they Judaized and changed the name of Yom Teruah, Day of Shouting, to Rosh Hashanah, the New Year's. The fact that the Torah did not give a reason for Yom Teruah no doubt made it easy for the rabbis to proclaim it as the Jewish New Year. Now, it's outright bizarre to celebrate Yom Teruah as New Year's. This is the biblical festival that falls on the first day of the seventh month. However, in the context of Babylonian culture, this was perfectly natural. The Babylonians actually celebrated Akitu, the New Year's, twice a year. Once on the first day of Tishri, and again 6 months later on the first of Nisan. The first Babylonian Akitu celebration coincided with Yom Teruah, and the second Akitu coincided with the actual New Year's in the Torah on the first day of the first month. That's important. See, because while the rabbis proclaimed Yom Teruah to be a New Year's, they still recognized that the first day of the first month in the Torah was, as the name implied, also a new year. They could hardly deny the basis of this. It's found in Exodus 12:2, and it says, "This month shall be for you the beginning of the month. It is the first of the month of the year," or the first month of the year. So the new year in Judaism, in the Bible, is supposed to be in the spring, the first day of the year. It's what we would call the month of Aviv, or it's the first month. And there's a whole another explanation on how that is determined. I won't go into right now, but it's in the spring. The context of this verse speaks about the celebration of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which falls out in the first month. And in light of this verse, the rabbis could not deny that the first day of the first month was the biblical New Year. But in the cultural context of Babylonia, where Akitu was celebrated as the New Year's twice a year, it made perfect sense that Yom Teruah could be a second New Year's, even though it was in the seventh month. Now, in contrast to Babylonian paganism, the Torah does not say or imply that Yom Teruah has anything to do with New Year's. On the contrary, the Feast of Sukkot, Booths, which takes place exactly 2 weeks after Yom Teruah, is referred to in one verse as the going out of the year, Exodus 23:16. This would be like calling January 15th in our modern Western calendar the going out of the year. Now, the Torah does not describe Sukkot in this manner. If it would not have described Sukkot in this manner if it intended Yom Teruah to be a celebration of New Year's. Okay, I know that was a lot, but I hope you followed me on that. And if not, go back and listen to it again. I'm going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to look at some clues as to the real purpose of Yom Teruah, the biblical purpose, and we'll do that in another in 60 seconds. We'll be right back.
Nearly 8 million Jewish people from around the world live outside of Israel. Many Jews dream of making Aliyah to their biblical homeland, but are too poor, lack documentation, or live in communistic countries. Ezra is a Christian nonprofit organization that helps the poorest of the poor Jewish people immigrate to Israel. Ezra partners from around the world believe that the return of the Jewish people to Israel is a fulfillment of God's promise made centuries ago. For 2,000 years, it has seemed impossible, but it is happening now. God is at the center of it all, and He is reaching out to the four corners of the earth. He is regathering His people back to Israel. You can help provide a light to show the way home by helping Ezra's efforts around the world. Go to EzraInternational.org and give the gift of hope today.
Okay, welcome back. As I said earlier, in contrast to the other Torah festivals, Yom Teruah has no clear purpose other than that we are commanded to rest on this day. But the name of Yom Teruah does provide us clues to its purpose, as I said earlier before the break. Teruah literally means to make a loud noise. This word can be used to describe a loud noise made by a trumpet, but it also describes the noise made by a large gathering of people shouting in unison. Now, here's the thing, and I talked about that earlier, but we didn't get into what that clue really points to. I mean, that first clue begs the question, what will cause a large crowd of people to shout in unison? We'll come back to that. The second clue derives from the timing of this feast. Yom HaTeruah is unusual in that it's a feast that occurs on a new moon of the seventh month, as opposed to the full moon that marks other major feast days. What makes this feast so unique is that no one could be quite sure when the moon would appear or reappear. In light of this fact, I believe Yeshua, or Jesus if you know him better by that name, Yeshua gave us a holy riddle regarding the arrival of the Messiah when his disciples asked him privately about the signs of the end times. He said, regarding the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory, he said, but of that day and that hour no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. Yet then he tells them repeatedly to watch. He tells them, you're not going to know the hour or the day. Not even the angels, not the Son knows. Only the Father knows the time. But then he tells them to watch. You know, all the other feasts of the Lord have proven to be appointed times in which God is accomplishing some major steps in the road to redemption and the restoration of all things. Likewise, I believe that the Messiah's coming will occur on a feast day. Now, again, one feast that is shrouded in mystery and expectation is Yom HaTruah. And one could look to the sky the days before a full moon and know with certainty that it will be indeed full the next day. So the other feast days, we look and we see a sliver maybe off of the moon, and you say, okay, the next day that moon will be full. But during a new moon period, one must look up and watch. You must watch with anticipation, for no one knows the hour or the day it, the moon, or he will appear or reappear. You see where I'm going with this? The new moon is shrouded in mystery, and you must watch and anticipate. So too the coming of the Messiah, the return of the Messiah, is shrouded in mystery, and we must watch. So I believe Yeshua was giving us a holy riddle, and that the feast of Yom Teruah will be the feast of his return. Interesting, another name for the feast of Yom Teruah in Hebrew is Shevlei Shel Mashiach, which means birth pains of the Messiah. The rebirth of the nation of Israel and the coming of the Messiah are intrinsically linked together. Consider one of the sources of this term is found in the words of Isaiah. Before she was in labor, she gave birth. Before her pain came, she delivered a male child. Who has heard such a thing? Who has seen such a thing? Shall the earth be made to give birth in one day? Or shall a nation be born at once? For as soon as Zion was in labor, she gave birth to her children. Isaiah 66, 7 and 8. This day is also known as the day of awakening blast or shout. To celebrate the future coming of Mashiach ben David, the Psalm 47 is read in the temple. It was read 7 times. Today it's read in the synagogue, but it was read 7 times in the temple. And this is what it says. Oh, clap your hands, O ye people. Shout to God with the voice of triumph. For the Lord Most High is awesome. He is a great king over all the earth. He will subdue the peoples under us and the nations under our feet. He will choose our inheritance for us, the excellence of Jacob, whom he loves. Selah. Think about that. God has gone up with a shout, the Lord with the sound of the trumpet. Sing praises to God, sing praises. Sing praises to our King, sing praises. For God is the King over all the earth. Sing praises with understanding. God reigns over all the nations. God sits on his holy throne. The princes of the people have gathered together, the peoples of the God of Abraham, for the shields of the earth belong to him. He is greatly exalted. Amen. Many believe that the last great regathering to the land of Israel must occur before the Messiah's coming. The people of God shall be regathered in the land together and singing in a unified voice their praises to God. They will shout and celebrate their deliverance from the nations and from all of their enemies. Man, what an incredible day that will be. But until then, the Feast of Trumpets is the beginning of the 10-day period. It concludes with the Day of Atonement, known in the Jewish writings as the Days of Awe. During this time, may all the children of God be filled with the reverence and awe of the Holy One of Israel. My prayer is that we recognize the birth pains of Messiah. Be filled with anticipation and be ready for his coming. May we watch. And may we not only watch, but may we be found participating in his purposes and assisting the Jewish people home in their quest to come home. And you can do that. You can do that by going to our website right now and making your best gift and be a part of this anticipated return. This return of the Messiah will follow the return of his people, his promised people, home to the land. And so as we look to these feasts of the Lord, we can look with anticipation that God will accomplish all that he said he would accomplish. He's doing it. He's doing it right before our eyes, and you can be a part of it by participating in the Aliyah. Would you do that? Go to our website today, EzraInternational.org. Do what you can. God bless you. Hag Sameach. Shalom. We'll see you next time.